Shaner with Community Forum, and I'm your host today. And I'm also with Sage Leadership Strategies, and my guest today is Mark Dean, who is an IBM Fellow and the Vice President of Strategy and Operations for the Research Center at IBM. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Great. It's nice to have you.
It's nice to be here.
That's a really long title. We're going to get underneath what all that means in a minute.
Okay, maybe you can explain it to my mother after.
I know. But I understand that you have quite an accomplished career at IBM, that you have 40 patents or patents pending, and that you were instrumental in creating the architecture for the PC.
Yep, that's right.
So that's quite big. So I want to get underneath kind of what shaped you. Can you give us a little overview of your background and what led up to that piece of work, and then we'll fast forward to today.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Tennessee. Went to the University of Tennessee, always wanting to work in computers, and way back then that was before computers were really around.
How did you know you always wanted to work in computers?
Oh, it was my father. He was a tinkerer. He built things, and I kind of got that from him. So I built a small game machine when I was really just in high school, just early high school. So I just loved putting things together, and I loved electronics. So that got me into it, and I would tell you, even back then, when I was about 8th, 9th grade, I knew I wanted to work in the computer industry, and then that was saying a lot because it wasn't really an industry. And I knew I wanted to work for IBM, which was a funny thing how it really turned out.
How did you even hear of IBM?
I read all the books, and
Yeah.
I knew about the computers, and I knew if I wanted to do something special in computers, I might as well work for then the largest company in the computers in the world. So why not work for IBM? And it just happened to work out that way. A professor that was impressed by me had just helped another student get their PhD who worked for IBM, and he says you really should talk to this Mark Dean because I really had good grades, and you know I did his class really well. So I just happened to be kind of standing in the right place at the right time, and it just worked out.
Well, it sounds like it's a combination of both. That maybe you were in the right place at the right time, but you also were very focused, and you had a sense of what you wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, were you always really good in math and science?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't read worth a darn. I mean, people will tell you my wife will tell you I still can't read.
Oh, really?
But she reminds me every day. But I was really good at math, and I love science, and so that made it work. I mean, I worked really hard, had to try to keep up with everyone, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I really couldn't wait to get to class, to get into the lab, and the learning experience was just a fun thing for me.
So was your dad an engineer also, or?
No, he never had a chance to go to a four-year finish and get his degree. He worked and managed a couple of the dams in the TVA system, Tennessee Valley Authority. And he's self-taught. And, you know, he built a tractor from scratch. And,
wow.
You know, so I grew up with this stuff. And I take a little bit from him. If I could take just a smidge of his intelligence, I said I would be pretty well off, and it has worked out that way.
So you started working for IBM right out of school?
Right out of school. I couldn't wait to work. I co-opted when I was going to the University of Tennessee, and that was a great experience. So I would advise anybody getting an engineering degree, especially, to take some time and do an internship or co-op. I think it really works out. And I started right in Boca Raton, Florida at IBM, and I thought that was kind of neat, too, to actually go to Florida and live for a while. So little did I know that I was going to get a chance to work on the original PC, and for the next 10 years after that, I did most of the PC designs for IBM.
So how did that come about?
Again, sitting in the right place at the right time and doing some of the right things. I had started my master's degree while I was working for IBM early on, and I had done a master's degree program, a project in what I was calling a high-performance graphics workstation. And at the time, that was kind of special because it showed what was possible, what actually could be built. They said, "Hey, Mark, why don't you come and help us build this PC thing? You know, we're working on this thing. It's a small project. We're going to see what we can do." And IBM really wasn't paying that much attention to it.
So initially it was characterized as a small project.
Yeah, it was just, we had about 13 people working on the original PC. I did the graphics and video cards, and we didn't think much of it. It's a fun thing. It was kind of a novelty.
Well, I guess when IBM's main focus is these big
Mainframe.
enterprise-wide
That's
systems,
right.
it's like, okay, this
Didn't
little
pay much
PC,
attention. That's right.
if you want to experiment with it.
Right, that's right. And little did we know how many people wanted a tool like that. It essentially, it's all it was. It was a tool that started out only being a replacement for a typewriter and a ledger to do spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And there's enough people that wanted that, hundreds of thousands of people, that we just kept building them. And little did we know it would turn into, well, today they build more than 100 million machines a year. So it was pretty special.
Wow. So when you say some of it was being in the right place at the right time, and some of it was maybe doing some of the right things, so it's really that combination.
Right.
What were some of the right things that you did to position yourself working on something that was pretty influential?
Right. Well, I got involved in a lot of whatever I could get involved in. I mean, they put me in a lab with all these parts and tools and equipment, test machines and test equipment, and I had a good time. I built a lot of different things, and happened to, I think, show that there wasn't much that couldn't be designed, that I could design fairly easily. It came kind of natural to me. And I also spent time listening to a lot of other people, learning what they knew, understanding what they were thinking, how to do things better, and that helped me broaden. And that broadening allowed me to sit in meetings and have conversations, and people actually thought I knew what I was doing. So and with a sleight of hand, I, got in at the right point, and, and it worked out. He said, "Wow, he thinks he says all the right words, and man, let's give him a chance." Basically.
Okay.
And we actually built the PC and a couple of follow-ons before the corporation actually knew they were done. And we kind of said, "Hey, look, here's what we got. How about shipping this?" And it kind of worked out. Now, it takes a team. There was a team of people, excellent team of people, and I really still think about them. That was a great time in my life because we had a lot of camaraderie in the team. So it was really a very tight-knit team. We would go drinking together and pizza together, and we stay late together and go to parties together. I mean, it was kind of a nice
So you were friends outside of work
right.
also.
That's right.
So you said it was a team, and it sounded like you worked really well together.
We did.
In order to accomplish this.
We did.
What were some of the attributes or elements
Well,
that made it such a good team?
I think we had a lot of respect for each other. We all took it upon ourselves to get the job done. We trusted each other to do our part. And working together, we never second-guessed each other. We always helped each other. We weren't afraid to ask each other for help. And we would
How did
get
you
it done.
foster all that? I mean, how did that come to be? I mean, and what was your role with the team?
I think people take a cue from the stronger personalities on the team. So I think they tend to gravitate to that. People want that. People want to associate. They mostly want to be social. They want to interact. And when they saw that it worked, when they saw, they said, "Wow, that worked out pretty good. If I let him do that and I do this, and we collaborate and discuss and come to a conclusion, make a decision and move on,
Yeah.
and not make it a competition, then everybody wins." And there's a lot of recognition to go around, right? There's a lot of praise to bestow on people. You don't have to have it all, right? It's kind of nice to share it, actually. And so we discovered that an interaction, a trust, the ability to engage on a conversation and make decisions for the good of the product, for the good of what we were trying to get done, versus trying to win all the conversations, actually worked for us. And that's kind of what I do now and I teach people that it's not whether you win a decision or lose a decision, it's whether you've got something done or not. Because that's all history will show, that you were a part of something that was successful.
Yeah, so initially you started out, loved to tinker, and you made it sound like I was in the lab and I had all this machinery and equipment and you were in your element.
Right.
Then clearly you moved into positions of leadership where you were leading technical people.
Right.
How did that shift happen, and what were some of your challenges in making that shift?
Well, being a technical lead wasn't so hard, because that's kind of what I did for the first 15 years of my career. being a managing person, managing people was the hard part. Having to decide what their salary was and give them a measurement and encourage them and all, that was a challenge.
So if you're just a team leader leading a project, that was fun, that was easy.
Right.
But when it comes down to really making those other personnel decisions.
In fact, I had declared that I would never be a manager. I mean, that was just not what I had in my plans.
Now, why did you say that?
Because I enjoyed building stuff. I didn't, somebody
I
else
wanna
could
get
do
the people
salary. Yeah, the people thing, And they came to me one day and said, Mark, we really need somebody to manage this architecture group we're putting together. We think you'd be good at it. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, you should try it. If it doesn't work out, you can stop.
You were shocked?
Yeah, I didn't. That wasn't, like I said, I had a plan. Really? I had a set of goals, and that wasn't on my roadmap.
Wasn't on your agenda?
No, it wasn't. But, sometimes you stumble into things.
So what did they see in you that you didn't see in yourself at the time?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I was easy to work with. I could bring teams together. I could get people to work well together. I had no real shyness or inhibitions per se to the technology and the projects because I could make a lot of things happen. People liked being around me, so it was. I'm from the South, so I'm pretty laid back and calm. Most of the people that know me know I really don't show much emotion, so I'm pretty calm most of the time. So I think they wanted somebody like that to lead what was a set of high-power technical people.
Yeah.
So, and that's a tough job. If you've got people that are in the first percentile of their discipline, or getting them to do something, it can be a challenge because they have their own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they all think that they know the right way to go.
That is right. They do.
So,
they probably do.
Because they're experts.
They are.
You've got like 10 of them saying that they're experts.
And they're all like this, going, that's right, what you do,
So how do you address those challenges?
Well,
you're dealing with egos probably, right?
There's a lot of egos. There's a lot of pride.
Yeah.
And they do want to be the first among equals, basically.
Right.
And so you feed that. You say, okay, and you have a conversation, and you get them all together, and you try to talk them through it. Once you get them talking, they get comfortable with each other. It's okay. I mean, they're really smart, and you just got to make them feel like they're playing a role, that they're having an impact. And once you get them feeling that way, then it moves more smoothly. But
now you make it sound so easy. Now, what were some give me an example of one of your greatest challenges and how you addressed it from a leadership perspective?
Well, my greatest challenge was stepping back and releasing hold of the technical design, because I had my own way.
You probably wanted to do it.
I wanted to do it, right? And I always felt I could do it. Right?
Yeah, sure.
And my challenge was to become a good manager, to say, okay, that's not my job.
Right.
The best I can do is ask questions. I need them to decide on the design and the architecture and how to actually put this thing together. I just need to make sure they're thinking through all the pros and cons. I need to be smart enough to ask the right questions so that I can lead them into making a decision on one of the right ways of doing something. I think that's the other thing that I mentor when I mentor people is there's a lot. And my grandfather would tell me this, there's a lot of right ways to do something. You just got to pick one. So don't wrangle over whose it is.
Yeah.
Just get them to pick one.
Well, I would imagine, especially since your passion is in solving technical problems, it must be so tempting.
To just solve it.
To just solve it or to just throw in your opinion.
Right.
So when you're in the moment, in a meeting, especially when it's something really innovative, how do you catch yourself?
I write it down.
So when you're doing a lot of writing, you're really excited about
So if somebody picks it or says, well, let's do this, and then I check it off and say, okay. And if they don't, I'll say, okay, too. But, I'll feel better if they have decided that, okay, this is a good way to do it. But I tend to try to, again, just provide a perspective through questions versus dictating. And it sometimes lead people in a direction that, comes up with a solution I thought would be good, or comes up with a solution that's just as good. and recognizing it's just as good is the key.
Is
It
good
really
enough.
is good enough. I mean, the PC was good enough. If you look at it
PC was
compared to
pretty
the Mac,
good.
it was pretty good, but I have to admit, the Mac was better. And watch this, it's going to be on TV, and my boss will say, but back when we were doing it,
Yeah,
the
what was
PC was good enough.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we allowed a lot of people to play. The other thing we've learned is you need to do things in the open. You need to build an industry, to build a greater opportunity. You need a lot of people playing in the market.
Yeah.
You can't have a proprietary design and build an industry. What happens is, if you could have a proprietary design and own the entire market, but the entire market would be small.
Yeah.
The key is to let people play and let them grow the market,
Yeah.
and then you have a bigger pond to swim in, and you just go after that bigger opportunity.
Which is really the shift in the last 10 years with IBM really trying to lead the open
Right.
sourcing.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly. So we learned a lot during those PC years, and we learned that being open, letting people participate, actually helping them participate, grows more opportunity, and then we just have to compete for that opportunity. That's kind of the key. So it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You tend to want to be proprietary and own it all, so you have to fight that urge,
Right.
knowing that in the long run you're going to be successful because the total revenue you'll get, or the total access you'll have, is much larger.
Well, you've been through all those stages at IBM. I mean,
Yeah.
through the time where IBM was all going to be broken up.
I
mean,
know.
how did you navigate that in terms of how your roles evolved?
Well, you have to adapt,
Yeah.
and you always in learning mode, right? It's interesting how smart people are, because there's a lot of smart people in the world, and there's a lot of learning that you can do. Learn about business, about culture. And one thing I definitely learned is culture is the hardest thing to change. And you have to learn to adapt to culture, and don't expect that you're going to change culture anytime soon. It's just such a powerful, fixed item in people's lives that it can drive people in the right direction or the wrong direction.
So when you're saying culture, you're meaning the culture of the company and the
Organizational culture,
organization.
yeah, the company's culture, the
Yeah.
principles,
Yep.
what
Yep.
they stand for. Very powerful. It was very powerful. So it's one that people don't pay much attention to early on. Once they understand it, then they know culture plays such a significant role.
So you've got this long title now, IBM Fellow.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what does it mean to be a fellow? Because I know that is a very particular designation
Right.
within the IBM culture.
Right. Well, there are right now 70 IBM Fellows out of about 380,000 employees. So
It's not a lot.
It's fewer IBM Fellows than even general managers in IBM. So it's kind of special. There's only been 190 IBM Fellows inducted or selected since 1963. So it's a fairly small group, and it represents well, not a lifetime, a career of achievement. It represents a contribution to IBM's business, our society, that is outside the norm. I got there because of the work I'd done on the PC and the impact it had on the industry and the society and, of course, IBM's business.
Which is huge.
Which turned out to be huge. We were having fun when we started, but
It's
yeah, it turned out
interesting.
to
So
be-
you say, like, we didn't really know it at the time.
No, we had no clue. We thought we'd sell 200,000 machines, and that's it. Then we'd
Really?
be off doing something else. We never thought that anybody would care.
So what does that mean to you? I mean, you've since gone on to other things, and it would be great for you to talk a little about your current role and the impact, but what's your real takeaway from that?
Well, I tell people, first you got to be having fun, because if it hadn't become its success, I'd still been happy.
Yeah.
The good thing is I was happy when I was doing it. I was happy after I was doing it. Before it became a success, it was just a good time. We were having a really fun time. It was a challenge, but something that we could do. The fact it became so successful is good, but that wasn't why we were doing it.
So then it became really, really public, and of course then
Right.
further impacted and opened doors for you in terms of other
Oh,
opportunities.
yes, it did. I mean,
Yeah.
it really did open up a lot of doors. It allowed me to take some chances in management. I mean, and Denise will tell you, my wife, that I set a lot of goals. So I had a career planned out from when I started IBM till now. And when I would get my PhD, when I would make IBM Fellow, I mean, I set a lot of goals. Not goals that you have to live and die for, but just guideposts.
Yes.
The guideposts that say, okay, you're going in the right direction, keep moving, or you're not. Okay, should I make a turn or not because I'm off, off my goals. And so it helps you make decisions when those opportunities come up. So it's just allowed me to explore new space. I got a chance to start what became IBM supercomputer, the Blue Gene. I started that group, and it turned into a big success. I mean, as far as high-performance computing goes, I managed a group that built the first gigahertz microprocessor, which now runs in the Sony PlayStation. So that group turned into something else. So what I've learned is, and I tell people, something you do is only a failure if you don't learn anything from it, right? If you do something and you get something out of it, and of course if it becomes successful and people says it's successful, then it's a success.
Right.
But if you do something and nobody cares and you don't learn anything from it, then it is a failure. But if you learn something from it and you can take that with you and use it again, then it's not a failure. It actually can be a success. A lot of the things I did in high school and college led me to be able to build the PC. I mean, it just kind of enabled me to put myself in the right place at the right time and get something done that I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't had those other, quote, failures.
Well, it sounds like you knew at a very early age, and you were very focused, and obviously always goal-driven in terms of a general direction you wanted to take.
Correct.
And you also targeted the company.
I did.
Which is kind of unusual.
Which is strange.
Yeah.
Very strange.
I mean, what advice would you give to maybe somebody in high school or college, or somebody just starting out their career from a leadership standpoint?
Well, one, you have to go with your passion. It's amazing what difference that makes. People can tell if you're passionate about it or not. You can't hide that. You can't go in saying, yeah, I'm passionate, and not really being it. They see right through it. So that passion will make a huge difference. I mean, just make a tremendous difference. And then you should not be afraid. I mean, it's amazing what you can do. You don't have to be a genius. I mean, I'm not a genius. You don't have to be a genius. If you have passion, you work hard, and you learn not only what you know, what your primary discipline is, but it's much about all the surrounding activities and people that are working with you. If you can learn all of that as well, then people will come to you because you will have a greater amount of knowledge and insight than the people that tend to stay in their silos.
So it sounds like not only having the courage, because there's a courage piece in there in terms of living and focusing on your passion, but whatever that discipline and piece of work is, but also understanding the bigger picture and how it connects or interfaces with other people's work.
Because people look for the solution. They look for somebody that can see the bigger picture so that they can line the puzzle pieces up. Because it really is kind of a puzzle. And if you're the person that can decide where these puzzle pieces kind of lined up, then people will tend to follow you. I think this not being afraid is important as well, and probably it's most important. For people, successful people, about every 5 to 7 years, they go through some major change in their career. And I tell people that if you go through that change and you don't get a knot in your stomach, you haven't made a big enough step. That one measure of success is about every 5 to 7 years you get this huge knot in your stomach. You about curl up and you want to hide in the corner because you're so afraid of your next job.
So knots are good.
Knots are good. Occasionally.
So, occasionally.
You don't want to live with them.
As long as you're still in the passion space, and if you've got a knot,
then you're moving. You're moving in the right direction.
You're growing.
You are growing, and you just got to take that knot and turn it into energy, and it will propel you forward. So and expect to fail. Quote, expect to fail, but always learn from that. Don't be afraid to fail, because it's interesting what could go wrong, right? If you're trying your best, that's all you can do, right? And if you take note of what you've done and make sure you don't do the same thing bad twice, because that's the worst thing. I mean, and people still don't learn from history. My grandfather was a history teacher, and he would always say, you really should learn from history, because if you look in history, people tend to do the same, make the same mistake. It repeats itself. And the bad things repeat themselves. And all you have to do is pay attention and not repeat what people view as failures. You know, learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
And move forward, and they won't be mistakes.
So you're saying, really, you know, don't be afraid to fail. Even if you got that knot, just try and, I think you said in so many words, try and transform that energy. Well, what's kind of the linchpin? Like, how do you do that? Because it sounds like you've pretty much had a lot of successes along the way.
I had lots more failures.
Did you?
I had a lot more failures,
Really?
yes, and people don't hear about those. As long as you got a few successes, you can kind of hide up all those failures.
Okay.
Right. But I never hid from the failures. I always owned them.
Okay.
And I always admitted to something that wasn't going to work early on, before it really festered. You know, you really don't want to hide something that's not going to work and hope it goes away, because it won't go away. It'll follow you around. What you need to do is be the one to recognize it's not going to work and own that, and then come up with a solution to fix it. I mean, that's the way it needs to work. And people don't realize that. They don't want to feel, they don't want anybody else to know they missed, and so they keep going down the wrong path, and you can't do that. You've got to, as soon as you know that it's not going to work, you got to say, I understand it.
So you've already had a lot of great legacies. You have a lot of work that you've already been involved in that's had tremendous impact on the industry and on the world.
Right.
If you could give us a headline in terms of what's your greatest hope for how you want to eventually end your career, where do you want to take it at this point?
Wow, that's a big one. I would like to have influenced a lot of kids, especially minority kids, to get into engineering and science. There's just a huge amount of opportunity. The world is changing. All the emerging world is coming online, and they really need to take advantage of the opportunities.
So leave us with a piece of advice for them. What would you say to them?
I would say don't be afraid, that you can achieve.
Yep.
Anything's possible if you want it bad enough. And there are people out there that wanting to help them be successful. So please take a chance, right? Because it will mean a lot. It will mean a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Until next time, thank you for joining us.